From the Oasis Live 25 reunion tour to the 90s Brit Rock revival, 2025 was another great year if you're a fan of rock music from the UK. Plus, there were some great albums released this year that made their mark, so let's get to it. This is your 2025 Brit Rock Year in Review. On January the 10th, Franz Ferdinand released their album, The Human Fear. I have to admit that I had lost track of Franz Ferdinand for a lot of years and their new music, but of course, I still love their debut album that came out like 20 years ago now. That's making me feel old. I'm sure it's making you feel old, but I love this new album, The Human Fear. I reviewed it here on the channel if you want to check it out, and it has that typical, Franz Ferdinand spiky guitar sound, along with some new influences, some really cool influences like the Beatles. I can hear a lot of Beatles on there as well. So The Human Fear is a great record, and it was a great way to kick off 2025. On February the 7th, Inhaler released Open Wide. The band, led by Elijah Hewson, aka the son of Paul Hewson, aka Bono from U2, released his third album with his band Inhaler, a band I enjoy even though Open Wide isn't on my favorite albums of the year list, although I kind of feel like these guys are filling the hole left behind by Catfish and the Bottlemen. They have a very similar sound to my ears. On February the 14th, the Manic Street Preachers released their 15th studio album, Critical Thinking. It's hard to believe that this is the Manic Street Preachers' 15th studio album, and you know what? They're as sharp as ever. They might have toned things down over the years. They maybe don't rock out as much as they used to, but they still know how to write great melodies. They still know how to write awesome lyrics, and I'm glad that the Manics are still out there in 2025. On February the 14th, the Wombats released Oh the Ocean. Liverpool's The Wombats' latest album is a tight, catchy indie rock collection. I love the track Sorry I'm Late, I Didn't Want to Come. It's a great title and a great single for all of us antisocial people out there, and I love the lyric on this song. It's not that I hate you, I just hate everyone. On February the 14th, 2025, Sam Fender released his new album, People Watching. England's answer to a modern Bruce Springsteen released his new album, his third studio album in 2025, and it's a driving, emotional album that again highlights Sam Fender's killer voice, and I love the title track on this record, People Watching. A little bit of a spoiler alert, it might end up on my favorite tracks of the year list. I love this record. On February the 28th, Andy Bell released Pinball Wanderer. Before he rejoined Oasis for the Live 25 tour later in the year, Andy Bell released his fifth solo studio album. He's such a creative dude. Between his work with Ride, his solo career, and his work with Oasis, Andy Bell has a lot of great projects on the go, and this is a super cool record. So 2025 was a great year for Andy Bell. Also on February 28th, Doves released their new album, Constellations for the Lonely. Doves returned with their sixth studio album, and it's got some of their best songs in a long time. I like this record a lot more than their last record, The Universal Want, which came out in 2020. Renegade, Cold Dreaming, Last Year's Man. It doesn't quite reach the heights of the albums that they released in their 2000s heyday, like Lost Souls or The Last Broadcast or Some Cities. But you know what? In 2025, Doves are still bringing the goods. On March the 28th, The Darkness released their eighth studio album, Dreams on Toast, and it's a pretty great record. I ate some actual toast in my review for the album here on the channel, so if you missed that, make sure to check it out. And there are some great songs on this record, like Walking Through Fire and Mortal Dread. This was an album I didn't expect to love in 2025, but I dig it. The Darkness are still going strong. Also on March the 28th, Mumford & Sons released Rushmere. Ah, yes, Mumford & Sons, the kings of the indie rock folk revival from the early 2010s. I can't say that I'm a huge fan of Mumford & Sons, but they have been staying very busy because they already have another record called Prize Fighter due for release in February, so you get a double dose of the Mumford. On May the 9th, the Kooks released Never Know. I've always loved the Kooks, and they released their seventh studio album this year. Luke Pritchard and Hugh Harris are a great songwriting duo, and they continue to be a good band almost 20 years after their debut album was released. Makes an older Brit Rock fan like myself feel even older, but this was a really cool record. On June the 20th, Youngblood released Idols. He continues to expand his sound with epic rock productions like the track Hello, Heaven, Hello. He's definitely got a great voice and some killer songs in his arsenal, and he even teamed up with Aerosmith this year for the One More Time EP. You know what? Him and Steven Tyler have the biggest mouths in the music biz. And this is one of the biggest news items from 2025, and that is on July the 4th, Oasis kicked off their Live 25 reunion tour with 2 shows at Principality Stadium in Cardiff, Wales, beginning what would become an incredible run of shows. I don't think even us most hardcore fans realized just how amazing this tour would end up becoming, uniting fans around the world and making us believe in the power of rock and roll again. Oasis toured the world from the UK to North America, South Korea and Japan, Australia, and finally ending things in South America. I saw them in Toronto on August the 24th. It was one of the highlights of my life. It was one of the highlights of 2025, and I'll be making another video here on the channel for next week where I talk about the Oasis 2025 year in review, so keep your eyes peeled for that. On July the 20th, Don Broco released their new single Cellophane, one of my favorite British hard rock bands out there right now. They released their first new single in 2 years in 2025, a killer track called Cellophane, and they've continued to release nothing but absolute bangers since then. Hype Man, Disappear, and most recently Euphoria. I saw Don Broco live back in October, and they always put on a kick-ass live show. Very much looking forward to their 5th full-length album dropping in 2026. On July the 25th, Paul Weller released his new record, Find El Dorado. The Mod Father himself released his 18th solo studio record this year, and he just continues to be one of the best elder statesmen in British rock. On August the 22nd, Dinosaur Pileup released I Felt Better after a long hiatus due to the health issues on the part of frontman Matt Bigland. Dinosaur Pileup finally returned with a kick-ass rock record that has some major riffage, in addition to some really great lyrics on here as well. I've always described Dinosaur Pileup as a mix of Foo Fighters and Weezer, and that comparison continues on their new record. On September the 5th, Suede released their album Antidepressants. I have to be honest, as big of a Brit Rock fan as I am, I've never actually listened to a ton of Suede, so I'm going to have to fix that in 2026, but they are one of the classic Brit Rock bands from the 90s that released new music this year, just like the Manic Street Preachers from earlier in this video. But just like how it's great to see that the Manic Street Preachers are still doing their thing after all these years, it's awesome to see that Suede is still out there rocking. On September the 29th, Biffy Clyro released their new album, Futique. Aside from Oasis, I would have to say that Biffy Clyro are my favorite band on the planet, and they continue to astound me with the high level of songwriting and musicianship that they have on their records. Songs like Hunting Season, True Believer, and Dearest Amygdala, or is it Amygdala, however they pronounce it, and their Scottish brogues. It just shows just how much they still kick such ass. I love Biffy Clyro, and I wish I was going to their show that they announced for next summer at Finsbury Park in London, the show with Don Broco, Nothing But Thieves, Marmozets, and Waves next year. I gotta go to that show. I gotta figure it out, and I gotta go to that show in 2026. On October the 10th, Richard Ashcroft released Lovin' You. Richard Ashcroft has had a great year as the primary opener for the Oasis Live 25 World Tour, playing his huge hits, the Verve hits, for adoring crowds. This new album is not bad. I like some of the songs that have more of a country influence on them, and Richard himself is gearing up for his own huge tour coming in 2026. On October the 17th, Miles Kane released Sunlight in the Shadows. Miles Kane released his new album that was produced by Dan Auerbach of the Black Keys, which is a cool combination. I haven't listened to a ton of Miles Kane, but I've always loved his work that he did on that side project with Alex Turner from Arctic Monkeys called The Last Shadow Puppets. On October the 31st, Florence and the Machine released Everybody Scream. Florence returned with her new album in this very interesting, evocative album cover. She still has a great voice and a knack for writing great songs, including the title track, so this was definitely a highlight of later in 2025. 2025 was the year of the classic 90s rock bands, the 90s Brit Rock revival, if you want to call it that. Of course, we talked about Oasis, but then between Suede, the Manic Street Preachers, Richard Ashcroft, and now the Charlatans, it wasn't just Oasis who helped with the 90s Brit Rock revival in 2025, and it's crazy that the Charlatans are 14 13 studio albums into their career. You know what? Time flies. And that is it, guys. That is my 2025 Brit Rock year in review. Now it's your turn to hop into the comments below. Let me know what your highlights of the year were, your favorite Brit Rock albums of 2025 were. I'm sure I missed a lot of artists. I missed a lot of albums. And I'm sure you guys will let me know about that in the comments below. If you like this video, make sure to toss me a thumbs up. I'd very much appreciate that. If you like this channel, you like what I'm doing here on the channel, make sure to smash the subscribe button so you don't miss out on future videos. And like I said, there are other year-end videos coming here on the channel as we approach the end of 2025. So this week we did the Brit Rock year in review. Next week we're going to do the Oasis 2025 year in review, which is a video I'm very excited about. Then I'm going to be doing my top 15 favorite tracks of 2025, rock tracks of 2025, and I'm going to cap things off this year with my top 10 rock albums of 2025. So keep your eyes peeled for all those videos as we approach the end of the year. But I'll see you guys again for another video here on the channel. Until then, rock on, everybody.